Hello, everybody. Buenos dias, buenas tardes, depending on when and where you are watching this information webinar. If you are joining us today, you are either interested in the Líderes Fellowship, or you heard about the Líderes Fellowship at Hispanics in Philanthropy and want to know more. My name is Stephanie Roman. You can call me Roman. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am the Senior Program Manager of Leadership, Learning, and Racial Equity here at HIP. What we are going to cover today as a means of sharing more about the fellowship program is a high-level review of HIP, the imperative for the Líderes Fellowship. Is this a good fit for you? A little bit about the Líderes Alumni Network. We're going to go over a timeline, costs to participate in the fellowship, but also what is your return on the investment? And then how do you reach out if you have more questions after this? So first, a little bit about who Hispanics in Philanthropy is. I think it's really interesting to know that HIP actually started as a group of Latinx program officers who kind of got together with the aim of bringing more Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx folk into the philanthropic sector. And since then, HIP has grown into a transnational network of funders. And our vision at HIP is one of social justice and shared prosperity across the Americas. We are on a mission to strengthen Latinx leadership, influence, and equity by leveraging philanthropic resources. And we believe that if HIP supports institutions and individuals that are committed to power building in Latinx communities across the Americas, then Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx will achieve greater impact, social justice, and shared prosperity. HIP holds three values very close to heart: equity, leadership, and influence. We value that all people in the Americas have the ability to participate and to prosper and reach their full potential. We value the ability to mobilize leaders to work together for justice. And we value a philanthropic sector that is reflective, that respects and responds to and resources communities of color. Now, the fellowship program falls under one of our 4 strategies, right? So the way that we believe we're going to get to our theory and advance our mission is through 4 strategies: democratize philanthropy, channel Latino influence and thought leadership, build Latinx power, and mobilize bigger and better resources. So as I was saying, the Líderes Fellowship falls under the building Latinx power strategy. And we really see this work as a way to build and leverage intersectional power at the local and the national level by expanding your knowledge and challenging the Latinx narrative so that it is inclusive of race, gender, and other diversity to strengthen Latinx voice and visibility in philanthropy. And the goal is to strengthen the ecosystem of Latinx in the social justice sector. Now, the fellowship is meant to strengthen your professional development, to practice healing and well-being. This is Ana Mari Arguillagos, and this is a message from our president and CEO who has been with HIP since 2018. And it was really when she came into the organization that HIP really became more explicit about our racial equity and racial justice work. She says, the world is changing rapidly, and not just the political situation, also the social, economic, demographics. We need a new playbook. I am proud that HIP has the right staff and a brilliant board. We have people who can build on the past, who are creative, and who can act as disruptors when needed. That's how we're going to bring this work into the future. And I really want to just highlight this line. We need a new playbook, right? So when you think about what you're going to experience in the fellowship program, you're going to go through a process of decolonizing your understanding of what it means to be a leader, right? The patterns that we learned depending on the social constructs that we grew up in. And then really go through a process of healing, well-being, and self-analysis in order to redefine and to name for ourselves what kind of leader do we want to see in the world and what kind of leader do we want to be in order to disrupt, right? To do systems change, to do intersectional work, to do all of this power building. Now, if you are a person who has or wants to step into their courage and that works on the intellectual and emotional complexities of the intersections that we all live in, that you live in, right? If you're constantly kind of analyzing the identities of race, class, education, gender, ability, if you are a committed practitioner to learning with and from others, if you are a person whose curiosity informs future actions to change social conditions, if you are mid-career, and we do not mean age, when we say mid-career, we mean a minimum of 3 years, either in philanthropy, in a nonprofit, or in the social justice sector, which can show up as like movement organizing, on the ground organizing, but you are a professional that is engaging in philanthropy systems, or you see yourself going in that direction. If you are a person who represents the beautiful diversity of our comunidad, including Indigenous, Afro, women, differently abled bodies, Asian is not in here, but that as well, and LGBTQI, Latinx, then yes, this fellowship is a good fit for you. Now, we have a alumni network of 200 people strong. We have folks across the US, but we also have a fellowship program in Mexico that is a part of our network. We have folks in Puerto Rico and Hawaii as well. And so by participating and completing the fellowship, you then join this network of líderes. Now, here is an important timeline to keep in mind. This is specifically for your application, all right? Applications launch November 15, 2021. Applications close January 15 of next year, 2022. And then your application will go through 2 different review processes. First, it'll be reviewed by our alumni network. This is the external reviewers. We give them roughly a month. We give them roughly 2 months. Sometimes folks ask for extension because, as you know, most movement leaders, right, social justice leaders are volunteering, right, working on multiple projects. And so we really want to make sure that we honor the time of those who are reviewing your application and that we don't add that unnecessary pressure of, oh, you have to get it done in a week or 2. We are not about that. And you will see the same type of respect throughout the fellowship. We want to honor different people's accessibility and ability to be able to do certain things. And so we do first go through the external review process, then it gets taken back to HIP, and then HIP does its internal review with our leadership staff that includes myself, Carla Gonzalez, who is the program coordinator for the fellowship, Jasmine Chavez, who is the Associate Vice President of Public Affairs. She leads our racial equity work at HIP. And then, of course, Ana Mari, also, who is the President and CEO, looks and reviews all of the applications. Again, this is 4 different schedules that we're having to kind of manage. And so we give ample time to ensure that every application gets looked at and that everybody gets the same amount of time for their review. So we ask for your patience as we kind of go through that review process. It's the same review process we've had for many, many years, and it's worked. And so applicants will be notified in July of 2022, okay? Then there's the actual fellowship timeline. So for folks who get accepted to participate in the Líderes Fellowship, there is an opening retreat that will be held in October of 2022. Then you will go through a series of coachings and communities of practice from November through April of 2023. Then there's a closing retreat, May 2023. And then you'll get introduced into the Líderes Alumni Network, which also gets referred to as LAN, L-A-N, in June of 2023. And we try to coordinate that with the HIP conference, that introduction. So hopefully we'll see. I don't know when the conference is going to be in 2023, but hopefully it's right around that timeline. Now, what is the cost for participating in the fellowship? There is a tuition cost of $4,000. We ask Líderes to cover their airfare for the opening and for the closing retreat, and that, the transportation from the airport to the hotel, those types of things. But we also want you to calculate how much time, on an hourly wage is the investment that we're asking of you, right? Think about 8 days of convening, 3 days of prep for the convening, 3.5 days of learning within the community, and then multiply that by how much you make an hour. This is the professional investment that we are asking of each participant, all right? Now, this has fluctuated a little bit in 2020 when we were in the middle of the pandemic. The tuition was a little lower, but we always ask folks to count their time that they invest, okay? Now the tuition has gone up since 2020, and this is again because of the amount of time that we are actually able to be in person in community with one another, all right? So we ask that you do the math on your own time. How much does it actually cost for you to participate in this fellowship, okay? Now, HIP's commitment, right? What we are investing is roughly estimates to $12,000 per person. And here's what we're taking into account. All right. Respected and seasoned faculty and coaches. You will have a dedicated coach that does one-on-one coaching, professional and spiritual life coaching with you. You also have a dedicated coach to do group coachings with you. And keep in mind, this fellowship is Latinx right only. So for many people, this is the first time that they will be in a room where all folks are Latinx, or they have some type of intersection with the identity Latinx, because we have had folks who are Afro Latinx, Asian Latinx, Caucasian Latinx. And so there's a certain uniqueness that comes with having the freedom to talk about certain things, right, that you wouldn't be able to talk about anywhere else. Part of our investment also includes wellness and resiliency practice. There's a lot of intentionality that goes behind this. We ensure that the opening retreat, the closing retreat, and even the in-betweens, that there is always space created for wellness, for healing, and for resilience practice, okay? And these are tools that you will be able to take with you after the fellowship to help you and to support your leadership, all right? Now, when we are in person in the opening retreat and in the closing retreat, HIP is going to pay for all of the food. We're going to pay for all of the lodging, right? For all the accommodations. Even if you show up a day early, because that's how the flights work out, we will cover that. The other thing that I want to mention is that in the past, we've been fortunate enough to receive vouchers from Southwest Airlines that have given us access to offer folks scholarships to pay for their airfare. So if you're like, ooh, I don't really know that I have money to buy a ticket, apply anyway. Let us know. If you get selected, we will do what we can to make sure that you are able to fully participate. All right. HIP also covers all of the materials, all of the books, all of the articles that we read together, all of the virtual platforms, including Mighty Networks, which serves as the digital communications platform, not just for the fellowship, but also for the alumni. And we give you access to coaches and thought partners. And I don't mean just the coaches that I talked about earlier. I'm talking about HIP staff, right? If you want access to somebody in the migration team, somebody in the gender team, if you want access to me, to Jasmine, to somebody in comms, we are not gatekeepers. We are going to do whatever we can to ensure that you get connected to the people that you need. All right. Facilitated learning community. We do outreach and work with other, I'm going to say, accomplices and allies in the field. A couple examples are folks from EPIP, from PRE, from Change Philanthropy, to offer you relevant learnings that are with the times, but also have a personal touch that's specific for your learning group, okay? Dedicated and highly experienced staff. This will be my 4th fellowship that I get to kind of create the container for. And so we've done a lot of mistakes. We've learned from that. We course corrected, and I am so happy to be able to present this opportunity to you today. You'll also be working a lot with Jasmine Chavez, who is our Associate Vice President of Public Affairs. She also leads our racial equity work as one of the dedicated and highly experienced staff. You'll also work with Carla Gonzalez, who is the program coordinator for the Líderes program, who has immense experience putting curriculums together, working with folks from different ages, and has gone through a fellowship program herself. And then, of course, a facilitated network. All right, so if you're looking at this and you're thinking $4,000 is a lot of money, and my organization does not have funding allocated specifically for professional development, right? Or maybe you don't know if your organization offers professional development, we ask that you reach out to us, right? Okay. Fill out the application, start it, but we also offer coaching on how to approach the decision makers in your organization about supporting your request for professional development. So we will talk to you one-on-one, and we'll talk and we'll kind of, coach you through that. How do you ask, how do you even go about inquiring? What are the right ways to present this to folks so that the organization understands that an investment in you is really an investment in them as well. And the other thing that I really want to stress is that, because the reality is that some organizations are explicit about having funding for professional development, but if you know for a fact that your organization doesn't have it, but you still want to participate in the fellowship, please apply anyway. There is a section in the application where you can apply for a scholarship, okay? This is airfare scholarship and tuition scholarship. We cannot guarantee that everybody will be accepted for the scholarship, but we just do not want you to not apply because of that, all right? So no excuses. We've talked about the elephant in the room. Now, what is your social return on investment? There's the lifelong relationships that you're going to build, the professional network, right? So there's the social capital and the relational and access capital, all right? So this to me means you will be in direct network with folks all across the nation who are working on different initiatives, but who are also interested in power building and doing intersectional work, who are interested in getting together and meeting for a cafecito, who are willing to talk about, some of the uncomfortable things that are happening at work, some of the power struggles that they're navigating through. And this is lifelong, right? We talked about the alumni network being 200 people strong. Just like you, who are probably a person that and analyzes, the way that race and class are showing up in the world, folks who have gone through this fellowship program are on the same page as you and are willing to have those conversations. There's also professional media opportunities. HIP also looks for opportunities to not just invite you to some of the programming that we do, but we also look for opportunities in ways that we can lift up the work that you were doing, that we can invite you to be one of the speakers at our conference or at one of our workshops or one of our communities of practice. I think one of the most recent events that I can remember was we had a book charla with Paola Ramos, who wrote the book Latinx. She's also a reporter on Vice, and we had one of our líderes interview her live on Instagram. And part of the reason that we reached out to the alumni was because they have a social media page that is dedicated for libros en español, Latinx libros. And so we really saw that as an opportunity, not just to lift up an author, but also lift up another platform of one of our líderes that may not necessarily be about philanthropy, but we just saw that and it just made sense, right? And so there continues to be professional media opportunities, increased access to leverage resources through collaboration, intellectual, financial, ongoing access to professional development through the network, leadership and human development skills that increase your self-awareness and your agency to influence and transform philanthropy, to work towards the conditions necessary for POC leaders to thrive in the social sector, and to become an effective advocate for well-being of our comunidad, right? And then some other bullets that we have here are an analysis of data, system change know-how, self-care practices, and shared leadership capacity. I can go on and on about this. But the one that I want to spend a little time on is the self-care practices. We are very intentional and very strategic about how we present this to you because we believe that self-care is an act of resistance. All right. Now, when you think about your ancestors and folks that paved the way for you to be here, for a lot of folks, they didn't have the ability to do self-care. And it's necessary for us and for the generations to come to practice self-care. It is our human right to do that. And it's about damn time that we start carving out space for that. And so I just want to really lift that bullet up. Now, if you find yourself still with more questions, we invite you to visit the Líderes website, hiplideres.hiponline.org. You can also reach out to me or Carla Gonzalez. We'd be more than happy to connect with you one-on-one and go over some questions that you may have. Maybe there's some specific questions that you want to ask us. The other thing that I'll say is that we will have information webinars that you'll be able to join. So just fill out the interest form and be on the lookout for those interest webinars. But other than that, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see your application for the 2022 HIP Líderes Fellowship. Bye.